Today I'm talking to Pastor Carey of Trinity Lutheran Church in Ann Arbor. Thank you for talking to me today.
It's good to talk with you, Elizabeth.
So tell me about the activities of the church and how it functioned before the pandemic.
So we are a pretty typical congregation, if there is such a thing. We worship every week on Sundays, and before the pandemic, we had Sunday school for all ages on Sunday mornings as well. We do social ministries, so we collect and we contribute to a lot of the different agencies in town who specialize in serving the economically insecure. So the activities of the church were very much about gathering and being in person. We weren't that technologically savvy. I mean, we were on social media kind of a little bit. We sent out electronic email newsletters, but other than that, we were a community that was used to coming to this place for meetings during the week, gathering in the evenings for study and fellowship. So a very in-person kind of organization.
So how did the activities of the church change when the pandemic hit last March?
When we shut down, it was very sudden. We found out on a Thursday evening that services were going to be canceled for all of Lutheran churches like our own. And quickly, fortunately, because we had two people on staff who were really adept at video editing, we were able to put together a worship video. Yeah, so all in-person activities were closed. That included our TLC Adventure Preschool, which is housed here at the church and is a ministry that we're really proud of. Yeah, everybody was just scrambling to try to find out what the state was requiring and how we could work around it and if there were ways to reopen again. And people just immediately started getting crash courses in how to use Zoom and how to tune into YouTube videos.
How has the church community adapted and survived since last March?
Very quickly, we had to, come up with a new routine. Now worship was online. We were reaching out. We reached out to members to record little bits of worship so it wouldn't be like just two or three talking heads or two talking heads and a keyboardist, but really could feel a bit more like, oh, there's members of the community participating in this and different people from week to week. So the music director invited the musicians to record, and we did some mass choir gatherings for Easter and Christmas, and that was really good. And a member collaborated and got about 50 of us to record Silent Night, many of us holding candles, and it was for the ending of the Christmas Eve service, and I think that had many people in tears. That was really beautiful to see so many people at once participating. It was so helpful, both that we had people that are talented and able to do this kind of thing, but just the willingness of people coming together to create these worship videos. Sunday school had come to an abrupt halt. For the kids, the families were just zoomed out with kids doing online school with Zoom. So staff created these short little videos, teaching videos of about 15 minutes in length. Adults had more capacity, so we did do adult classes, both from Trinity, but also all of a sudden, our conference of ELCA churches came together to offer some education collaboratively, and that was really rich and interesting as people would join these meetings either on Sunday mornings or in the evenings for specialized education courses. And also something that is really central to Lutherans is we do confirmation classes with middle schoolers, getting ready to affirm their faith. And it's like a 2-year process. Well, quickly the conference came together and started doing these together. Pastors took turns teaching the classes. We'd break into small groups on Zoom, and it was exciting, but it was challenging because, again, these middle schoolers were doing a lot of Zoom and kind of zoomed out by the weekend. But there was some rich engagement that happened that wouldn't have happened if not for COVID. I was so touched, and it was a beautiful thing that our TLC Adventure Preschool was able to open again in the fall. Council was on board when the regulations came from Laura about licensing the preschool, and we had to really restrict this building pretty exclusively to preschool use. But we weren't gathering in person anyway, so at the beginning that was a no-brainer. By the spring, when people were starting to be vaccinated, we're kind of like, we're ready to use the building. But it wasn't that long, and by then we had our ways of functioning in place.
Did anything surprise you?
I think what surprised me was how adaptable people were with learning to use technology to worship and to stay in touch. Our senior citizens really became very proficient at Zoom, and we found that in our Zoom gatherings, which we do twice a month, we've really gotten to know each other better, because instead of being in a really large room around a variety of large tables, it's more intimate. We have to take turns speaking, and we've really gotten to know each other more in depth, which has been kind of a beautiful thing. One member commented, I've been a member here since I think it was the 80s, and yet I've come to get to know this group better in the last 6 months because of Zoom. That was beautiful. It was interesting. People were very adaptive, and people really valued their church community, even more than I realized. And so donations were strong, and people who had given on Sunday morning started mailing in donations. Our viewership was really strong on YouTube, and people were sharing videos. I was hearing from people I hadn't heard from in years who live out of state in other locations, who had found us and started worshiping with us. So it was really kind of neat. It was heartbreaking not to be able to gather and to see people on a weekly basis and to visit. But the neat thing was, we did find a way to worship and be community in a virtual kind of way. We've started to hear from people who found us online this year. And so 3 families have reached out for baptisms no, 4, because one of the baptisms has already happened. 4 families that I'd never met before reached out to Trinity and said, we want to get our kids baptized. We want this to be our church home. And that was really neat, because you put out YouTube videos and you can see how many views they get, but you can't see like who are first-time guests, who's there. So that's really neat. The Holy Spirit found ways to keep working in these very strange times. It surprised me how robust the giving to the congregation through this pandemic has been, as we came together to raise money for social agencies and agencies that were serving the economically insecure in our community. The donations just poured in for relief, and that was touching. In some ways it didn't surprise me, because that's always been very at the heart of this congregation, but just the extent to which people want to help others is really beautiful and wonderful.
What was the hardest part?
I think the hardest part was this abrupt and complete shutdown of in-person gatherings, and I think that it was really emotionally wrenching for people. Hospitals shut down in terms of visitors, even clergy couldn't visit. And so people would be going through these health crises, and we could talk on the phone. Sometimes we could video chat, but it was not the same as being there, holding somebody's hand, praying with them in person. I mean, we found creative ways to work around, but it wasn't the same, and that was hard. Funeral services in those first months were just delayed, because we didn't know how long this was going to be until people could gather. Then many more months in, we did a video memorial service, which was quite beautiful, but again, just sad that people couldn't gather.
What changes are you looking forward to in the next 6 months?
I'm looking forward to being able to gather again in person. We've started in-person worship outside on Sunday mornings. We are still masking when we sing. we're looking forward to not having to do that, but we're just trying to be really, really cautious. And we have a PhD virologist who's a member of the congregation and a number of medical docs. And so we've been consulting with them. Hey, we know the restrictions are lifting, but what really is safe as people gather? Um, some of I haven't seen a whole lot of the families with small kids yet because small kids can't be vaccinated yet. And so, as we look forward to moving worship from outside back into the building, we're going to be sure to have protocols that are safe for everybody to participate. We don't want a two-tiered system where, oh, vaccinated people can do this, but unvaccinated people can't. We want to find ways that the activities that we re-engage, everybody can re-engage because we're a community together.
Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Just how grateful I am to all the people who have come forward so that the preschool could open and operate all year, so that the church could continue to function in a robust sort of way. I couldn't have done it alone. And of course, a congregation means a gathering, it means community. And yeah, I'm just grateful for all of the beautiful ways that people kept the community intact and functioning and reaching out.
Thank you for talking to me today.
Sure. Thank you.